Welcome to Faithful Harvest Farms. My name is Molly, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to make your first sourdough loaf. So I've been doing the sourdough starter journey for almost a year now, and really I haven't dove too far into actually making bread. What I've made instead is like a bunch of desserts and things like that were easy and came more second nature to me first. So this is probably going to be around my 20th loaf that I'm attempting. But needless to say, sourdough starter is a process. It seems really hard and difficult at first, but I promise you if you stick with it, find a recipe you like and just keep trying, you'll be able to make some awesome bread. So you'll see this is my starter. Her name is Gretchen, and it's like a thing where you have to name your starter or it's bad luck. So this is Gretchen. Hopefully you'll see her in more videos. And what I did is I fed her the night before. I've let it sit all the way on my counter overnight. Sorry if you hear my children in the back, they're playing and having a good time. But I fed her last night, and then I let her sit on the counter all overnight. And now I am just about an hour until I'm ready to use Gretchen. So you'll see she's like nice and bubbly there. So I'm gonna leave her out on the counter. And when I'm about an hour away from using her, I want to do what's called autolyze the flour, which basically just means mixing the flour and the water together and letting it sit, letting everything develop a little bit before we start mixing the rest of our ingredients. So I have my bread flour right here. It's organic, it's unbleached. Unbleached is really important with sourdough starter because that is what allows the good bacteria to stay in. The flour is if it's unbleached, because the bleaching process gets rid of all the good bacteria as well as bad bacteria. So it'll be hard to start a starter that way. And I am using a recipe that I kind of stuck to. Someone gifted me with this sourdough everyday book. So I've just stuck to like the beginner's basic loaf in it. This is by Hannah Dela Cruz. But yeah, and this is the recipe I'm sticking with. So it is going to require a lot of flour. So you need, I'm making 2 loaves, so I'm going to do 5.5 cups of flour. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now some of you may have seen some sourdough videos where they're very perfect and they get their little scales out, they get their grams out and measure it perfectly to a T. I do suggest doing that at least one time so that you can tell the consistency of the dough and figure out like what it's actually supposed to feel like. But once you've done that once and you kind of get a feeling for like what it should look like, what it should feel like, you can just stick to the measuring cups. I like it better that way. And then I'm gonna get some water going. So I have 2 cups of water. All right, so 2 cups of water going in. And I like to do all of my sourdough by hand. So I'm going to mix it with this bread whisk. At least at first, till I get a lot of it incorporated. And then here's the part, if you've ever tried sourdough before, here's the part where you probably mess up. You follow the recipe to a T, to a T. And sometimes, depending on your environment or depending on different factors, you may need to add a little bit more water, you may need to add a little bit more flour, you may need to leave it out for longer, you may need to leave it out for a shorter amount of time. So there's a lot of factors that go into sourdough bread making, and I feel like that's the most difficult part, is kind of getting a feel for those factors and knowing when to add stuff and when to stick to the recipe. And again, my kids are in the background having a blast. All right, so now that this is like pretty incorporated, that was not good. Now that this is pretty incorporated, I'm gonna start mixing it with my hand, really just get in there get it all mixed together. And it's okay if it starts sticking to your hands, no big deal. And again, like I said, you may have to adjust and deviate from the recipe that you're using. So, for example, I have all this flour at the bottom. I still have all this flour at the top, and it's gonna be a little bit dry. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna take some water and I'm gonna add it to it. And again, you may be the person that likes to make things perfectly every time, and you don't want to deviate from the recipe. You want to, then you're definitely gonna want to use a scale for that. But I'm the type of person that I kind of like to do it on my own, stick to a general guideline, and then kind of make my own adjustments from there. So again, just mixing it all in my hand. Sometimes I like to take it out and mix it, really get it going. I'm pinching and pulling. All right, there we go. And I might have added a little too much water, but we'll see once I mix the sourdough starter in. That will be like a good test. I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bit more of the dry flour and mix it in. All right, so it's pretty incorporated here now. Again, it's gonna be really sticky in the beginning, but it shouldn't be like soup, especially because you're about to add more liquid to it. So this is the biggest tip that I could give you. Try and aim for a consistency somewhat like this. So yes, it's sticking to my hands. It's gonna stick to your hands if you hold it for too long, but it shouldn't be to where the whole thing is like coming off on my palms. So you'll see it's sticking more to like my fingers. It's still a little dry. I don't know if you can see it very well on camera, but overall that's kind of what you're shooting for when you just mix the water and flour and you want to sit and let it autolyze. So now we're gonna just cover a kitchen towel over it, leave it for an hour, and then add the rest of our ingredients, so stay tuned. Okay, it's been a little over an hour, probably more like an hour and a half, and now I'm gonna start mixing my other ingredients together. My biggest advice with sourdough is don't let it dictate your life or you'll get tired of it. So yes, try and stick to the schedule as much as possible. Probably carve out like one full weekend to really stick to the schedule for your first time making it. But after that, life gets in the way. I had to put the kids to bed, get a shower, clean up a little bit. Don't worry, don't fret. Just keep going through the process, and as long as it tastes good, it's fine. So let it sit for an hour. I realized when I videoed, y'all did not see how bubbly my starter was because I didn't really show y'all, but if you can kind of see, there's like bubbles all throughout it. Not sure if you can see this time, but hopefully you can see it a little bit better. And then I have my flour and water, which has been, which I've let autolyze for about an hour and a half, a little too long. Hopefully it still turns out okay. So now I'm gonna add the rest of my ingredients. So, and I also realized that I was cutting off my head. So trying to like squat a little bit more. Need to get a better setup, but it's my first time, so trial and error, right? So now I'm gonna keep following my recipe. I'm gonna add half a cup of sourdough starter. So since I'm making 2 loaves, I'm gonna do 1 cup. And again, like I said, I'm not perfect. We're not doing this perfect. We're just doing the best we can and hoping that it'll turn out great. This is a learning process, so I'm here to show you if it fails, it's gonna fail. If I do great, I'm gonna do great. Woo. But I actually think it's better for y'all to see the failures than to see these perfect loaves sometimes. Okay, so got my starter in there. And again, I don't ever close this tightly. You want to give it some room to breathe. And then usually, gosh, I got starter on my salt. So usually I like to use sea salt, Baja Gold sea salt. This salt doesn't really do anything for you. It's not really good in terms of minerals, so that's why I like to use my Baja Gold sea salt. But I ran out, so sometimes you gotta just stick with what you got. So now I'm going to do 1.5 teaspoons, but I'm doubling it, so I'm gonna do 3. And again, not being perfect here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, cool. So now I'm gonna mix it all together by hand. This is where I like to grab my dough from the outside and pull it into my sourdough starter, just to try and avoid getting my hands super sticky to begin with. They are gonna get sticky in this process, but just to avoid it in the beginning. And it might be a little bit harder since I've left my dough sitting quite a bit longer. And I honestly just like to pick the whole thing out and just start incorporating it this way. It's probably not the professional way of doing it, but again, trial and error. This is my process, the way I like to do it, the way I found that works the best. But I'm just kind of pulling it out and then mixing it in the middle. And that's how I like to do this. And you'll feel the salt at first, so you really want to make sure it's incorporated in and you feel that it's all spread out, not really all in one place. Same with the starter. I'm gonna scoop a little bit more. Scoop. And what I will like to say is where you probably get stuck on this is you're oh, you're holding your hands really long and you're trying to mix it and you're wow, it's really sticky. But what I will tell you is working with dough is kind of like a process. It's a little bit hard to get the hang of it, but you want to have direct contact with the dough, direct firm contact, and then pull apart quickly. And that's going to keep your hands a lot less stickier. And I will say this loaf probably is a little bit less sticky than I would like it to be when I'm just first mixing all this stuff together. So I probably could use a little bit more water, but I don't really feel like putting more water in it. So we're just kind of gonna roll with it and see what happens. But again, I'm just mixing it really well, incorporating it all together. And we got a solid blob. All right, so now I'm starting to not really feel the salt as much anymore. Everything's kind of mixed together. My dough's mixed with my starter. And I got a nice little big ball to work with. All right, so it's all mixed together. Now I'm gonna sit, and this is going to begin the process of sitting and waiting to do my stretch and folds. So plop it in there. This is about how sticky my hands are right now. If they're a little more sticky than this, it's fine. If they're covered in dough when you're just barely touching it, you need more flour, a lot more flour. So just kind of give it your best judgment call to make it look like this consistency. Hopefully y'all can see that this time. But yeah, so now I'm just gonna leave it for 30 minutes and then I'm gonna start doing my stretch and folds. So we'll be back, stay tuned. All right, so it's been 30 minutes and now we're ready to start our stretch and folds. I just mentioned how you shouldn't let sourdough take over your schedule, shouldn't cancel your plans, do anything like that. But what I would say is that you need to give yourself enough time to do all your stretch and folds and get those out of the way, and then you can do whatever. So typically this book suggests doing it 4 to 6 times, so that would be 2 to 3 hours. I always like to do 6 stretch and folds. Like I said, you're gonna have to play around with it, figure out what's the best amount for your environment and things like that, different factors like that. But we're gonna go ahead and start the stretch and fold process now. So, like I said, for my sake, we're gonna do 6 of these. I'm gonna try and dump this out on the counter so that y'all can see what I'm doing, but it's probably gonna leave me with a sticky mess. But basically, when you first start the stretch and fold process, your dough is going to be very sticky, kind of like mine is. You don't, like I mentioned before, you don't really want to be holding the dough too much. You want to have direct contact, firm contact with it, but then be quick about it. So all I'm going to do for my stretch and folds is I'm going to simply stretch one side of my dough and fold it in. Stretch another side of my dough, fold it in. Stretch the third side of my dough, fold it in, and then stretch the last side of my dough and fold it in. Typically you'll leave it in the bowl. I did that just so y'all could get a better glimpse of what I'm doing, but you'll see that when I'm touching my dough now, it's not that sticky. And like I said, it's probably a little underhydrated. So if you have a little bit stickier dough to begin with, that's totally fine. But yeah, now let's set another timer for 30 minutes to do our second stretch. All right, so I waited another 30 minutes. Time to do stretch and folds round 2. I'm not going to take it out this time because you kind of get the process, but I will show you how sticky and what it looks like afterwards. So just stretching and folding my dough. And one more side. All right. We stretch and fold, and then if you look at it, we're getting less and less sticky. Like I said, mine started off kind of with no stick to begin with, so it's kind of hard to judge, but if yours is a little more sticky, go and look at my short that's about stretch and folds to see like the normal stickiness of it. So now I'm gonna cover it back up, set a timer for 30 minutes, and then go ahead and do your third stretch and fold. Don't forget to set your timer because I definitely forgot. But all right, time for stretch and fold number 3. We're halfway through. And if you're like me and you have kids, you might have something called mom brain because I forgot to set my timer again. But we're gonna do better with stretch and fold 4, I promise. And again, you already know the process. So for the last of these, I'm probably just gonna speed the video up a bit. And then I'll show you what it looks like. All right, there's my dough. Cover it back up. All right, so time for our last stretch and fold of the day. This is number 6. So after we do this stretch and fold, we're going to leave it in a warm, undisturbed spot for about 3 hours just to check on it, but it's probably going to take a little bit longer to get to the point where we want it to be. We want it to have risen at least 40 to 60% in size. So just take a mental picture or take an actual picture to see where your dough is and see how much we need it to rise. But now this is where we're at. And so now I'm gonna leave it in a warm spot, put the towel back on, and check back again in 3 hours. All right, switching to this view so y'all can see a little bit better. So this is my dough after 3 hours. It's starting to form some bubbles, and it has grown a lot in size, but I don't think it's quite ready yet. You're gonna want it to be very airy, very light, and when I come and pick it up, I just still feel a lot of weight to it. So I'm gonna let it sit for like another 30 minutes and check back in. Well, time really got the best of me, and so now it's been 5 hours as opposed to the 4-hour mark. Actually, I think it was 3.5 that I was gonna check them, but it looks like my sourdough's ready now. So it should be very light and airy, bubbly, and then the first thing that I wanna do is go ahead and get some flour and clean my surface off. So I'll go ahead and do that. Yeah. And I have a Velcro baby right now, so that's what's going on with that. Okay, so now I have my bannetons, and I'm gonna put my loaves in after I shape them. I'm gonna dust those with flour. Just a light little spritz. Good job, are you helping? job. All right. Okay, we're gonna see how this goes with baby in my hands. We're gonna attempt to shape our loaves. Okay. So in all my bread tools, I got in this neat little bread bag. Love them, they're great. Okay, so let's attempt to shape them. This is very hard with the baby in my hands. All right. And it might be over fermented at this point, but again, you're looking for when it's very light and airy. There should be air bubbles in it, and it should have expanded 30 to 60%. And it's having a hard time getting out. You want to touch it too? It's a good thing only my family's eating this. Huh, isn't that right? See, isn't that right? All right, we got most of it. Cool. So we got our dough. Again, we kind of want to be quick with our touch to it because we don't want it to stick to anything. All right, so I'm just kind of going to grab it out and then cut it in two. If you're out there and you're watching and you're thinking, I can't do this. If I can do it with a baby, you can learn how to do it, I promise you. Can I do it with baby? I don't know. Never have before. It's definitely going to be a learning curve, and these aren't going to be shaped the best, but let's see how it goes. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch my bread out. Some people roll it out. I don't like to roll it out. I like to keep it nice and light. Oh, are you getting that one now? I like to keep it nice and light. And the first technique that I'm gonna do is the little sourdough bowl. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take half of it, tuck it in, take the other half, tuck it in, take the top, fold it in, take the bottom, fold it in, flip. Oh wow, that was really bad with the baby. And then I'm gonna create surface tension and just keep going down and down and down. Are you helping with this one? Guys, if I can do this with a baby, y'all can do it. All right, so we're just grabbing and getting some surface tension. All right, this one's gonna go in our bowl banatone. And you'll see that I didn't really do too much to it, and now I'm gonna stitch it up. So I'm gonna just stitch, stitch. If you want like a short video on how to stitch, I can add a short. All right, keep that one to the side. Whoop. Okay, take our other one and let's shape it. This one, I don't even know what it's called, but we're gonna do it a little bit differently. You getting fussy? Are you getting fussy? Okay. So start the same, fold it to the side, fold it to the side, and this time we're gonna roll it all the way up into that shape and then create surface tension again. Oh, this one's even harder. I know. Here, you wanna go on this side? We're almost done. Little cha-cha. That, you want this? He likes to say this. All right. Okay. Good enough. With the baby in your hands. And lay it face up. And then we're gonna do our stitching. Stitch, 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 stitch. Cool. So now what we're gonna do is put plastic bags on these and then leave them in the fridge overnight. And we'll come back to them in the morning to bake. Let me go put plastic bags. All right, really you just need something to keep the moisture in. So, gonna put it on top, gonna tie a little knot. Thank you. Thank you for helping. And it's good to go in the fridge. So now we're gonna allow it to rise again in the fridge and bake in the morning. So stay tuned. All right, guys, it's the next day and it's time to bake. I will say it's about 1 p.m. here where I'm at. So these did get left in the fridge a little bit longer than I wanted them to. So it's kind of like an experiment at this point to see how they turn out. But I'm gonna give you the general guide to the process. So you'll wanna make sure that you have a Dutch oven. I only have one, so unfortunately right now, all I can do is place one in the oven at a time. But when you get your Dutch oven, you wanna put it in the oven right away and before you start preheating, because you want the Dutch oven to preheat when your oven is preheating. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. So, and I just have a large Dutch oven. And the recipe that I am following suggests doing it at 500 degrees, but I'm gonna set it to 450. So while that's preheating, I'm gonna go ahead and take my first loaf out and I'm gonna score it. Put the other one back in the fridge. Cool, so we got this nice loaf. We'll just dump them out on my thing. And what's neat about this little, I don't even know what to call it, but this little holder that you put in there, this little contraption, is that it actually has like your measurements here. So gives you kind of like a nice little target to put your dough in. All right, so now we're gonna score it. Y'all don't judge me. I just take my little razor by hand and do it. That's the way I like to do it. So what you're gonna do is you're kind of gonna tilt this almost like at a 45-degree angle, and you're gonna wanna score deep, but not too deep. So I'm gonna just like kind of try and go this way to show y'all what I'm doing. So you don't necessarily want it to separate too much. I don't know if y'all can see that or not. So it's like, it's kind of separated, but not too much. And then you can do whatever you want on the other side. I'm just gonna be really basic because I haven't gotten into, you know, any neat designs yet. I'm still trying to perfect my loaves. So what I'm gonna do is just the iconic arrows, is what I like to call them. But this time you're gonna want it to be not that deep. You don't really wanna see them because when you're baking your sourdough loaf, if you have a really good rise, this is gonna create what's called an ear where it really separates out. So the last time I baked sourdough last week, I actually ended up with 2 ears, which, I mean, that's fine. If you want 2 ears, then that's great. But that was all because my design, I cut a little bit too deep. So then it expanded really fast. So all right, we're all ready to go. Our sourdough's scored. It's not perfect, it's not pretty, but hopefully when it gets in the oven, it'll turn out great. So yeah, I'm gonna throw this in my Dutch oven as soon as it heats up and then bake it for around 30 to 35 minutes with the lid on and then 10 to 15 with the lid off. But I'll try and like show y'all the process of that so y'all can kind of get an idea of when you wanna take the lid off and when you wanna take it out. All right, first loaf is done. So we're gonna wanna let it sit on this wire rack and cool for at least 2 to 3 hours before I cut into it. Let's get our second loaf up and going. Okay, it's the same process here. We're gonna dump, score, and bake. And I have not turned my oven off I did have to tend to my baby for a little bit, so the Dutch oven has cooled a little bit. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, you can't be perfect with sourdough when you're first starting off. I'm definitely still a beginner. And you know, sometimes life just gets the best of you. So you gotta do just the best you can to get it done. And no one complains, let me tell you, because it tastes good still. All right, so we scored that one. A little deeper of a score here. Now we're gonna throw it in the oven and bake. All right, so this is what it looks like when you take it out, and you need to take the lid off at this point. So we'll see that it did rise, and now it's time to take the lid off, put it back in to darken it up. Okay, so these are how my loaves turned out. Ooh, this one's hot. Just came out of the oven. So this one I kept a little bit lighter just so you could see like a difference in color. You'll see my ear was a little big, so I maybe scored it a little too much. But I'm not gonna mess with this until about 2 hours into it because I don't want to ruin it. You wanna let it completely cool before you cut into it. This one turned out good, I think. This is like the first moment of truth to see if they like rose, which they did. Hey, it's okay. You wanna touch it? Wow. Which they did rise, but then the second moment of truth is whether your crumb looks good on the inside. So in a couple of hours, we'll cut into these and see how they turned out. They are kind of shaped a little weird. They're kind of shaped more like lima beans, I would say, than bulls. But overall, they turned out pretty good. And I would say that's not half bad for shaping with him. So I think it has a little bit of John Michael's creative, artistic creativity in it. So stay tuned. We'll be back in like 3 hours. So these babies have been sitting here, and it's time to assess the situation and cut into them, see what happened. Not too confident in these. They didn't have as great of a rise as they usually do. It might be because they're so poorly shapen, but let's cut into them and find out. All right. Wow, impressed. Look at that crumb. We got the perfect crumb. That's actually very impressive. You want to see? Doesn't it look good?
Yep. Can I see that one too?
Yeah. We're all going to find out together and see.
So John Michael also.
And I would say this is another win. Pretty good. Pretty good. So there you have it. That's how to make your first sourdough loaf. As you saw in the process, these aren't perfect. They're a little misshapen, but they do have a good crumb. And they are gonna taste great. So no matter where you start, it doesn't matter. Kind of try and follow the recipe and you'll get there. So there we have it. These are your first sourdough loaf. So good luck in your baking journey, and I hope you don't give up on sourdough. It's really such a fun process once you get it down.